So hello, everyone. This is Malika of Evanston Live TV. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. This is the virtual town hall Q&A with Anya Tanyavutti. She's candidate for 2nd Ward Alderman. This is some exciting news. I was excited to hear she threw her hat in the ring. She's got a lot of amazing work that she's done in the community. The woman has a track record that, I mean, you cannot deny. In me looking at her track record and watching her in D65, president of D65, the woman has done some amazing things. I was most impressed with her work during the pandemic. Who knew how to handle a pandemic? None of us knew how to handle that. And she made sure that all the kids were safe. She didn't lose not one child, not one teacher to COVID. And not to mention, she helped to right a wrong for over 50 years when they took out the 5th Ward school. So she, along with listening to the community and taking the baton of past leaders, she, along with her board and her team, her staff, brought back a 5th Ward school. And we're looking forward to watching that be built right before us. So, you know, many people say that in journalism, you should remain neutral. Well, in some things happening here in Evanston, there's some things I just can't remain neutral on, that I cannot remain neutral. I have to use my voice and speak to it. And there's been a lot of things going on in the city of Evanston, and I know you all have been paying attention to. And sometimes when you're silent, you're kind of adding to it. And so I know that there are some who understand that, who work in media here in Evanston as well. But I have asked a panel to come along today, but they are neutral. And they are just concerned citizens of the 2nd Ward, business owners who want to hear what Anya Tanyavutti has to say. And we are opening up to all of Evanston to ask questions. So you all get your questions ready. Everyone remain muted. When you're ready to ask a question, you're going to raise your hand. I thought it was best that we do a town hall right now. Unfortunately, they haven't released the names of all the candidates, have they? Am I right on that? They still haven't released, it's 11 applicants, and they have not released all of those names yet. So that's a lot of candidates running to replace Peter Braithwaite for the 2nd Ward. And what I have found, many of you have watched my forums during the elections here in Evanston. When you have a lot of candidates, you don't really get a full scope of who each person is because there's just not enough time. So I felt it's best, hey, you get to know at least one of these candidates. And I know Mayor Biss is going to be doing his forum the day before, I believe he makes the decision. You know, it doesn't give much time, but I noticed in the forum for 9th Ward, there were only 2 questions asked. So did you really get a chance to know any of those candidates? I don't think so. But I wanted to give Anya Tanyavutti, a very respected leader in this community who has a track record, who's done a lot. I felt she deserved an opportunity to be heard and for people to really know her work and what she's done. So without further ado, here is Anya Tanyavutti. She is candidate for 2nd Ward Alderperson. Welcome. Welcome back, Anya. You've been on the show many times.
Thank you so much for that introduction. As you mentioned, I'm Anya Tanyavutti. My pronouns are she, her, hers, Asia, and they. And I'm comfortable with those pronouns interchangeably. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to hear directly from 2nd Ward residents as well as business owners in Evanston about the needs and the priorities that folks have for the 2nd Ward Alderperson as well as the city of Evanston. And I am hopeful that I have the honor, pleasure, and privilege of serving the 2nd Ward in the city of Evanston as the next alderperson for the 2nd Ward. I came to this opportunity in response to requests from my community. And I believe in public service. I believe in our community, and I love the second ward. And I believe that I have some talents and skills and perspective that will be useful. And I decided to go ahead and apply for the position, eager for the opportunity to hear from my fellow candidates and the opportunity to be engaged with our community around this decision. Thank you so much for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you. Thank you. I only know of a few of the other candidates who are running, and I have a great deal of respect for them as well. But with you, I will say you actually have a track record. That, and I keep saying that because that is important. One thing the former alderman of the second ward had told to me years ago, Peter Braithwaite, he said, it doesn't matter what the position is. You want someone who has been on committees, who has a track record in this town. That's what you want as a leader. And he had said that to me years ago. He said, it's great when residents just want to jump up and say, I can do this, but he said, if they don't have a clue about governing anything, being on a committee, making really big decisions that affects households, he was like, they will have no clue how to be an alderman. So that's why I'm always stressing that Anya Tanyavutti has a track record in this town of really getting some things done. Now we have a panel with us who are going to start it off with us, and then we're going to open it up to all the residents here. Again, this panel, they are neutral about what is going on here. They wanted to get to know Anya. They love the idea. Yeah, let's get to know these candidates, because in those town halls, when it's all of them, you're not going to really get to know them. So the first person is Dekel Fonda. She is a second ward alderman. She is a second ward resident. Many of you know her. She is a woman about town. And I love Dekel because she is very active and very passionate about the second ward and about Evanston. So please welcome second ward resident Dekel Fonda.
Thanks, Malika. So, I have a lot of questions, of course, but you were right. Daniel has not released the names of the other candidates yet. Some of us know who they are, a few of them, but before I ask the question, I just want to say that a lot of us have a grave concern about the process that he's following, because as of today, he changed the forum to September 6th. Is that right? That's what I read from the city, September 6th, and he will be submitting his recommendation to council for a vote on the 12th. But the packet to council is put together on Wednesday and Thursday, which means Tuesday night's the forum. It means we have, as residents, 2 days at most to give him any feedback after we listen to all of the candidates, right? So one of the things we're asking of him is that he provides some type of online forum for feedback. And I'm also asking that he prioritize the voices of second ward, because I know he's already hearing from other people around the city. So just so people who are on this tonight know that there's a very small window for us to have any input if we want it. And we can either do that directly to him, to his email, or if he provides some kind of mechanism for us to offer feedback, which I think is really important, because otherwise, the voices of second ward are not going to be heard. So that said, let me ask Anya. And Anya, you've been living in the second ward now for several years, so I know that you know very well that it's a diverse in so many ways, not just racially and culturally, but we're working class, we're professional, we're small young families. Everybody's working hard. Everybody here is very busy. But we also have a business district, the West Village Business District, and the West End business district that are also very unique and diverse. And I'd like to know, as our council person, our alderwoman, I would prefer to call you, how would you support the business associations and the business districts? Because ours have been neglected. I will just tell you, we're talking Dodge Dempster, a small strip on Dempster to Darrow. The arts district is included over at Florence. It's a very diverse business district. So how would you support the business area?
Thank you for that question. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness in it. I agree that one of the things that we love about the second ward is the many ways that it is diverse. And that is why it is our chosen home for my family. And one of the things that we also love about the second ward are the small businesses and the character that those small businesses bring to the ward. I think a primary responsibility of an alderperson is to serve as a kind of liaison between constituents and the governance body. And the city is oriented towards service to residents. And I think in many ways, the business districts that have experienced neglect in the second ward are businesses that need greater care, attention, and customer service, to find a better word, from City Hall. And so I would really look for very quickly the opportunity to get to know City Hall very well so that I understand the operations and the assets and resources that can be brought to bear to residents as well as local businesses. And I'd be in touch with the business associations associated with our business districts. And so I would really look for the opportunity to develop meaningful and authentic relationships with the business associations in the second ward and look for how to match the needs of our business districts with the resources, assets, and customer service that should be available and is available at City Hall. For example, I understand that in the West Village Business District, there are some abandoned homes that need attention. And that is a public safety need that deserves some attention from the city. And I would hope that in my role as alderperson, I could serve as a liaison to residents and business owners in that area, matched with the need that's being expressed in that area. And I would look to do that in all of our business districts that deserve our attention. They are part of our thriving community. And I would want to use my compassionate and engaged leadership mindset in order to match those needs.
So Anya, I'm familiar with your leadership style at District 65. I think many of us are and are also impressed with it. What I'd like to know is how that leadership style would and your approach to leadership would benefit the residents of our ward, of the second ward.
Thank you. I really appreciate that question. Also thoughtful. I think one of the first things that comes to mind for me in my work with District 65 is much of the work in District 65 has been helping us make systems change to build racial equity in a system that previously was systematically excluding people based on their race and ethnicity. And one of the ways that one of the core tenets of the strategy that we've used to make systems change is to value both transparency and inclusivity. And so I would say that a core tenet of building a human rights focus in government work is the values of transparency and inclusivity. And if folks have the opportunity or haven't had the opportunity, I hope folks will take it to look at the letters of reference that I have from my colleagues on the District 65 board, there are some really consistent messages that I think capture my leadership character and style. As vice president for 3 years and president for 2 years of that board, my colleagues know both my character and my leadership style very well. And some common refrains are that I listen to them. I listen to my colleagues, not only, not in a shallow way, but I listen to them deeply and compassionately to understand their needs, values, and interests, and build solutions that are oriented towards representing our collective needs, values, and interests, as well as the needs, values, and interests of the residents and constituents that we each have meaningful relationships with. I would also say a core element of my leadership style is humility. I am very comfortable with the things that I know. I'm also very comfortable with the fact that there are things that I don't know. And when I don't know something, I approach that with curiosity, and I approach that with humility, looking for folks to provide insight and guidance and expertise in a way that can enrich my perspective and enrich my leadership. And so I think how that would translate to the alderperson position is I have and would continue to seek to develop empathetic and compassionate and authentic relationships with all of the residents and stakeholders in the second ward, and also represent a leadership value at City Hall for the inclusion of stakeholders in decision making. I think we've seen a significant transformation at District 65 for stakeholder inclusion, and that has enriched our ability to make major transformations, such as bringing a school and a walkable school to the Fifth Ward. That is as a result of a lot of stakeholder engagement and being humble as an institution, not approaching the community and saying, this is what we're doing because we want to do it, but asking the community, what do you want? What is most important to you? How would you like to see that happen? How can we leverage our resources to bring your vision and your dreams and your beliefs to life? And as a result, we had stakeholders who were fully engaged, fully informed, and enthusiastic about that work. We had some detractors as well, but those detractors were given the robust information that was provided and by their peers in this community. And their peers also shared information with them. And so I think that I could bring a value for stakeholder engagement and stakeholder relationships in the second ward, to the relationships in the second ward, and to City Hall on behalf of the residents and stakeholders of the second ward. And I think I would bring that value to my relationship with colleagues as well. My colleagues consistently, I think, describe me as courageous and direct, but also compassionate and inclusive. And I think we need leaders that represent our values and interests with courage and with directness and with a clear and concise vision, but also with the attitude of collaboration and productivity. And I think I bring those things to my leadership style and bring them to this role.
Thank you for that, Anya. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dekel. All right. Next, we have Linda Delbosky. Many of you know her. She runs Evanston Woman magazine, also Evanston Magazine with her partner, Aaron Foster. And she's a businesswoman, and She wants to speak on behalf of being a businesswoman, an established businesswoman here in Evanston, as well as for the Latino community. She is a powerful voice in the community. So please welcome Linda Dabowski.
Thank you, Malika. Thank you, and everyone for being here. Thank you, Dickel and Cal and Anya, for taking this time and stepping up to the plate and being one of the representatives to kind of move the pendulum in the city for the second ward. So as Dickel had mentioned, the business district is a vital part of the second ward, and being a businesswoman, I'm looking to place the Evanston Women's Business and Minority Business Center actually in the second ward, because there's so much opportunity there to not only bring our community together, but there's so much opportunity there. Knowing and understanding that the business district creates money for the ward, but also has an SSA that brings in money from government levy. Money the SSA for your business district in Ward 2 brings in. Do you know?
I'm sorry, your sound cut out for me on part of your question. Can you repeat the last part of your question again?
So, as many residents may or may not know, the second ward has a business district that receives a government fund, a government tax levy. Do you know how much money your ward, the business district in Ward 2 receives?
I don't.
Okay, so in Ward 1 they receive about 600,000 to 700,000 a year. And so in Ward 3, they receive about 550,000, I believe is the last count, a year. The Central District Ward, the Central Business District, they're leveraging. I haven't seen the books for this year. So what my question to you is, are you willing to fight for your business district to receive more money, or unify with all the business district so all businesses in wards in Evanston will be represented equally?
That's an excellent question, Linda. And thank you for that. I'd like to, I think, deconstruct how I would approach that. I think that it's really important that we as a community have more disaggregated data based on the demographics in our community, so that we can identify where the most vulnerable members of our community are, including the most vulnerable businesses, and how we can more equitably address the vulnerabilities that are present in our community. So with that being said, equity is not giving everyone the same necessarily. It is giving everyone what they need and what is due. And so with the understanding that vulnerable communities and vulnerable businesses are facing more barriers to success than those who are not, or who may have privileges or dominant identities, I think that it would be meaningful to do a disaggregation of that data and think about how we invest in equitable ways in our wards and in our business districts. And so that would be my approach to that question. I'm sorry, I don't have the particularities to answer with specific numbers at the moment, but I think that would be my approach to having that conversation with our local businesses and with City Hall.
Wonderful. My second question is, and thank you for that. My second question is, there's a growing population of Latinos residing in Ward 2. How are you able to create a more inclusive space for and meet their needs versus other residents in Evanston?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. Much of the gaps in opportunity to achieve that existed and still persist in some ways in District 65 fall along the lines of race and ethnicity, and primarily impact our community local community that is Black and Latino. Much of the adjustments that we've made in District 65 to fully embrace and uplift and serve the human rights of all of our constituents, including our Black and Brown, and especially our vulnerable communities, such as our Black and Brown communities, has been one, responsive to stakeholders, and two, has been oriented towards cultural and linguistic representation and inclusion. And so I have a track record of engaging with both our Black and Brown communities in authentic and compassionate and inclusive ways, and also advocating for resources being dedicated based on what I've learned through those relationships. For example, we have a TWE program in District 65. That is a two-way immersion, bilingual, dual language, Spanish, English program. That program is meant to be designed for English acquisition. I wanted to highlight some of the adjustments that we made to the program and stakeholder feedback. Our TWE educators made it very clear to us that they felt subjugated and left out because monolingual English curriculum was being given to them, and they needed specifically dual language curriculum provided to them. They also wanted assessments that were dual language assessments, not monolingual English assessments that were translated. Further, our TWE staff were having to do all of their own curricular translation. So their job was made twice as hard because they were being given curriculum that they had to translate in order to make it purposeful. Third, their outcomes weren't what they desired for their students because they didn't have curriculum designed for their students. And all of that feedback came from listening humbly and empathetically and compassionately to our TWE educators and parents about their experience of the TWE program. And as a result, we have made adjustments to buy specifically dual language curriculum in a dialect of Spanish that is accessible and congruent to our families and educators. We have assessments that are dual language assessments in a dialect that is congruent to our educators and families. And we got a TWE report at the end of last year in June that indicated that our Spanish-speaking students that exited out of TWE were achieving at a higher level than most other children in the district in both reading and math. And that was a turnaround. Parents, I felt like many of our Latino parents had said, we don't want our children to speak because we want them to learn English, and this program is not serving them. And so we're able to produce data that indicates that when children go through a dual language program and exit out English speaking, that they are performing at higher levels than their monolingual English speaking peers. That is incredible turnaround in data. It is also incredibly encouraging to children and families. And it is an affirmation of the assets that children and families bring to their schools, to our district, to our communities by being bicultural, bilingual, and biliterate. And so I would bring that same lens of empathy and authenticity and cross-cultural and love to the potential work that we can do with the second ward. I think I have had the privilege.
Anya, your audio is going in and out, but I think we got it. Linda, you got it. So yes. Overall, she will bring the same lens that she used in District 65 to help children who spoke other languages. She will bring that same lens so that there's equity, there's tools. All children have access, no matter what language they speak. If there's a problem with English, she made sure that they received the tools that they needed in order to take advantage of the opportunities that D65 offers. So she would bring that same lens to her role if she's appointed alderman of the 2nd Ward.
I just wanted to say that what I hope to bring to our Latino neighbors and friends and family in the 2nd Ward is compassion and appreciation for the cultural assets that they bring to our community, and a humility and approach that is relationship building and seeking cross-cultural respect and care and appreciation, so that I can leverage the voices and needs of our Latino community.
Okay. And that brings me to everyone else, get your questions ready.
City Hall.
Oh, Anya, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. What I'm going to do right now, while she's getting her audio together, my question that I want to throw out there before we bring in the other residents, and I know DeKel and Linda have some more questions as well for Anya. But recently, the city of Evanston was going to hire a city manager by the name of Carol Mitten from Urbana, Illinois. And if you all know Urbana, I was born not far from there. Urbana looks nothing like Evanston. Okay. So they have presented Carol Mitten as the only candidate for the residents to see to be our next city manager. And we know how important the role of city manager is in Evanston. It's probably more powerful than the mayor, actually. They make a lot of decisions, they handle the money, they move the numbers, and I think all of what we're looking for is a city manager who actually cares while they're moving the numbers. But they were about to hire this candidate, and a group of residents came together to protest because they did some digging in her background and discovered some things that wouldn't go well here in Evanston, because we are a diverse city. We're about 41% non-white here in Evanston. So you definitely need a city manager leadership that understands that. And as Anya has said over and over in her last response, having compassion for that, for different groups. And it's about equity, not just opportunity for all, but supplying the tools that everyone can get access to. And so a question of racial equity came up in the town hall with Carol Mitten, the candidate. And I just want to play that video clip right quick, because it was the voice of Anya Tanyavutti that helped to bring racial equity to the surface.
When Black folks are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. When brown folks are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? Stand up, fight back.
We're telling you, but you're not giving me the specifics.
This is all in your mouth. So I think
I
it's,
wouldn't even take these comments from before.
so I think,
Exactly.
so I think what we need to do,
We want someone who's going to come here and recognize that this is a city government that is in shambles in many ways. And that means that we have residents who don't feel cared for, who don't trust. How are you going to handle it? And you're not giving any examples or energy that's indicating that you're ready for that and that you're committed to that. And on top of that, you're participating, unfortunately, in a process that maybe you know or don't know is anti-democratic.
There's some skills that are very important to you. really important, like essential to you. And I don't have those skills, but I have a whole lot of other skills. And so if the skills around racial equity are like primary to you, which it sounds like they are, then I'm not going to be someone that you will support, because they're not, that's not where I have spent my time developing my skills.
Stand up, fight back! When queer folk are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back! What do we do? Stand up, fight back! What do we do? Stand up, fight back!
Anya was in that meeting. There were a lot of residents asking questions. Actually, at first, the residents weren't allowed to ask questions. Only the mayor was allowed to ask the questions, but there was a meeting after the meeting, and Anya spoke up because the right questions weren't really being asked. And the city manager role is very, very important. And our city council, all 9 of our aldermen, pretty much the city manager has to answer to them. So I felt like her leadership in that moment spoke volumes, because many believe we were about to make a really big mistake by hiring Carol Mitten. And it was the voice of Anya Tanyavutti, who was pretty much almost acting as an alderman already, who was questioning her, and the answers came out. So Anya, do you want to speak to that? How the importance of racial equity, because we had some in the city of Evanston who felt like, and actually a couple of aldermen on our city council who believe that racial equity is not important for a city manager. It's not important for an alderman. Hopefully that'll come out in the next election and you'll know who they are exactly, who feel that way. But you felt it was very important. So do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I can. And hopefully my audio and video are more stable now.
Yes.
I would say, I think that my commitment to the diversity of human rights through racial equity in the world have been demonstrated by my leadership and the way I've used both my social and political capital in my work with District 65, as well as some of the outcomes that we've been able to achieve, outcomes that are known nationwide as groundbreaking outcomes for children and families. And so I would say that, I believe that racial equity and capturing what is right and just and moral for the diversity of our humanity in this community absolutely is a central value that needs to be a part of work in this community, because we have a richness and abundance in diversity. And that richness and abundance in human diversity is a reason why folks seek out this community to reside in and to open businesses in and to work in, and in order to truly express our value as governance bodies for the diversity of humanity in our community and the abundance and richness that it brings to our community, we need to govern in a way that centralizes compassionate care and recognition of the value that human diversity brings to all of our lives and all of our institutions. And I think, at District 65, we have had experiences of hiring many professionals through a lens of value for the full human rights of the diversity of our community, and making that a non-negotiable in our hiring practices. And we have also seen what it looks like when that's not a non-negotiable, and the outcomes that we get when it is not considered as a central tenet of work. The other thing that I've mentioned to you before is I've worked with organizations that want to integrate values of racial equity in their work. And I've seen folks try to do this work with racial equity as an arm of the work, when in fact it needs to be an umbrella, something that covers every aspect of an organization and allows every talent and skill in an organization to be leveraged under the value of racial equity, as opposed to a project or a side arm of the work. And so I would say that it's important to, it's critical to hire leadership and to hire key personnel, actually all personnel, through the lens of valuing human rights as a central tenet of everyone's work. And when I didn't see that happening for such an important role in our city, a role that would impact all of us deeply and our lived experience in the city of Evanston, where we have repair and restoration that we need for past harms and current harms that are occurring to residents and businesses and stakeholders, I was worried, and I wanted to express that worry as an act of care. I think when you don't care about something, you don't speak up, you don't try to make it better. But when you have deep love and appreciation for something, you do speak up when you see that we may be going in the wrong direction. And I think that active criticism and that act of speaking up is not simply an act to be disruptive. It is an act to be disruptive. It is an act of love and care and appreciation. And I wanted to speak up because I was worried, and I wanted to see us get it right on behalf of our entire community. I knew that the most vulnerable residents in our community might be feeling the same way I was feeling, but not have the opportunity to speak up. And I wanted to capture that vulnerability with a courageous and direct voice.
Thank you for that, Anya. Thank you. Okay, we have Jonah Karsh.
Yeah, hi, thanks so much. I'm Jonah Karsh. I live in the 3rd Ward, but still a fan of yours, Anya, and happy that you're putting yourself forward. I had a question for you about your philosophy on affordable housing. One thing that I've seen sort of divide the council is that I think most of the council would say that they really support building more affordable housing, but when it actually comes up to have an opportunity to build or to make our zoning code less restrictive so that we can build more kinds of things that could become affordable housing, there's some people that kind of revert into like not in my backyard, or there aren't enough affordable units in this for it to be worthwhile, even if we need more housing in general. So I guess I'm just sort of curious. I assume that building more affordable housing is something you care about, and I'm curious how you think we get from point A to point B in the city and what your philosophy would be on that. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Jonah. I'll say I love that question for a couple of reasons. One, I myself grew up in affordable housing. My family, for a couple of years as a young person, were without a home, and we lived with family members. And after that, we lived in affordable housing, and I was so grateful for the opportunity to have something of our own. After many years of going without, it was a point of dignity and care that I believed I deserved as a young child, and also my family deserved. And it gave us the opportunity to live in a community that gave me access to a high quality educational opportunity, that gave me access to a safe place to develop friends and to, invest in myself and develop, the person who sits before you today. And so in one way, I love that question because I know from my lived experience that affordable housing is an opportunity that everyone deserves. And I also know that affordable housing is an opportunity that enriches the lives of folks who don't need to rely on affordable housing. As much as my friends in homes that were not in affordable housing units benefited my life, I also benefited theirs. And our community was enriched because of my presence, as much as my life was enriched because of the presence of my economically stable peers. I appreciate that question as well, because I just had this conversation with Daniel Biss earlier today. And so I've had the opportunity to think about it, and I want to share again what my process would be. What I shared with Daniel Biss is that affordability in Evanston is incredibly important to me, as well as the demographic shifts that are happening in Evanston as a result of lack of affordability. And what I shared was that I would want to approach that conversation first by collecting data. We do not have a comprehensive affordable housing plan in the city of Evanston. We cannot be making affordable housing decisions in a piecemeal way. We need to have a comprehensive affordable housing plan that is the responsibility of the entire city, not a piecemeal plan and building projects here and there and centralizing them in the communities that are perceived to be the most vulnerable. This affordable housing needs to be distributed across the city, and it needs to be distributed in a way that is responsive to data. And so what I suggested is that we would benefit significantly from a demographic study, both looking backwards and forward. What has been the demographic shifts in Evanston over the past 10 years? And what has caused that demographic shift? What are the things that we have lost as a result? Are there unintended consequences that we are experiencing as a result? And I think the answer to that is yes. But I would like to see the data in order to enrich my understanding of this issue. And I think we could also have that data looking forward. And we got data very similar to this when we did a master's facility plan with District 65 in order to plan to have walkable schools that ended up returning a school to the 5th Ward. And so I'm familiar with analyzing this type of data and leading advocacy that results in this kind of data. And so that's what I would look for us to come up with a data responsive, comprehensive, affordable housing plan for the city of Evanston that is accessible and transparently available to everyone, every stakeholder. The other priority that I indicated I would encourage when I spoke with Daniel Biss today is stakeholder involvement. That we need to hear from stakeholders about the impact of lack of affordability, and those stories need to be central to the responsive planning that we pull together. I hope that answers your question, Jonah. If it doesn't, please follow up.
Thank you.
I would love to know what Daniel Biss said to all of that, but I'm sure you gotta keep that confidential. Feel free to let us know though, if you know.
Daniel indicated that affordability is also important to him. And he also indicated that he felt like he learned a lot from our conversation today.
Good. Awesome. Okay, Linda Delbosky.
So speaking on the subject of housing, in the last 3 years, there were several housing units. I believe it was called Pittner Row, what was built in the 2nd Ward, and they run higher than $500,000, I believe. Not sure if they've been sold or not sold or where they stand. How do you feel about that type of gentrification, asking the seniors to sell their homes or kind of putting it in that way so that other homes, different types of homes can be built, and kind of diminishing the landscape and the beauty of the 2nd Ward?
I think I hope that folks followed the conversation that District 65 had with the city about an IGA last fall. It was a rich conversation. We did not have a complete meeting of the minds
and the IGA didn't pass, but we did come to some shared conclusions in the content of the IGA. And that was under my tenure as board president. And I was representing the spirit of my entire board, but also my own values. And I would bring those values to my work as alderperson if I'm selected. And much of that conversation was about protecting affordability in order to reduce and possibly eliminate the rapidity and the existence of gentrification, which is displacement of folks. And I think it's important to name specifically what's happening, that we are displacing people away from the community that they love, the relationships that they trust, and the places that have meaning to them and their family. And so my desire is to humanize the experiences that folks are having and to have policy that is responsive to that experience. I try not to be too dogmatic about anything. I'm not dogmatically opposed to folks wanting to build modernized homes. I do think that it's important that we think about how to protect folks who desire to maintain ownership over their homes from being pushed out as a result of lack of affordability, and to really try to preserve the economic and other demographic diversity that we have in our community. I certainly am opposed to folks who are predatory with their wealth. And so if there are folks who are being predatory of someone's vulnerability, economic vulnerability, then that is something as an alderperson that I would want to have a conversation about in order to make sure I'm also representing our most vulnerable folks in the ward.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, Linda, for those questions. Rose Cannon.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Anya, I'm glad to see you on this Q&A. And I have one question for you, but I wanted to tell everybody who I am. I'm Rose Cannon, and I'm one of the founding members of Evanston Rejects Racist Reparations. I currently live in the Evanston area, but historically was raised in Evanston, in Ward 5, and in the second ward also. So I have an invested interest in this city, and likely will move back someday when I can't afford to live there again. But where I'm living right now is fairly affordable for me. That being said, I am considered one of the elders that could have applied for the reparations pact, but decided not to. And with the exit of Peter Braithwaite off the reparations committee, I was hoping that his position would be left open for the next person to be appointed to ascend to the head of that committee. But instead, I understand that Ms. Simmons has been moved into the chairman position of the committee, although she is no longer a member of the sitting council. But there is a seat on this committee for someone who would fill Peter Braithwaite's position. And I'm wondering how you would fill his position, and what sort of philosophy you would follow if you were to be seated into his seat and then ascend onto the committee.
Yeah, so I would
be happy to have the opportunity to sit on the reparations committee if appointed, or if I have the opportunity to volunteer. Not sure what process the council intends to follow for that vacancy. The philosophy that I would bring, I think, would be similar to the philosophy that I would bring to all of the council work that I've spoken about. I try to approach governance work through a lens of curiosity and humility, but also bravery. And so I would be happy to work with my colleagues on the committee to get up to speed on the work so far, and also to bring a lens of focus on human rights and stakeholder inclusion and stakeholder voice in order to continue the work of the committee in a way that hopefully is responsive and focused on repair, which I believe reparations are designed to do.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that question, Rose. Did you have a follow-up? Looked like you were about to say something else.
From the actions that have been taken so far by the committee, do you think that they have been addressing the equity and the fulfillment of the reparations philosophy to the city of Evanston? Does something need to be changed or altered in their philosophy that they've been following so far?
I'm not sure what philosophy the committee, I don't know that the committee has defined a philosophy of approach. And so I think that would be a good question and curiosity to bring to the committee, that they do some work to define a philosophy or approach, or bring me up to speed on what their philosophy or approach is, so that I can share my perspective. I think my perspective about reparations is that reparations should be oriented towards repair. And there is a significant amount of harm that has occurred and continues to occur in our city, specifically along the lines of race and ethnicity, as well as the economic deprivation that coincides with race as a result of the economic structures in this country. And so I hope that the committee is using data to make decisions and is rooting their decisions in a value for repair. And if not, then I would encourage that approach be considered.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rose. It was interesting when DeKel spoke earlier, and she was asking how Mayor Biss will be running this forum for all 11 candidates for the second Ward Alderperson. To me, I don't know, you could speak to this, DeKel, or anyone. You know, there's been a lot of talk of racial equity and you know, reparations hasn't gone the way people thought it was going to go. But it seems to me that there's some lack of transparency. Things aren't just or fair for everyone, not just the Black community of Evanston or the Latino community of Evanston, but it seems like it's having an impact on everyone, how things are being dealt. The community being left out, finding things out too late, and that has nothing to do with color. That's having an impact on everyone. That's what I'm hearing as Evanston Live TV, listening to the community. Yeah, Did I get that right, DeKel? That's what I was picking up on. That's what I was hearing, that it's having an impact on everyone, these decisions.
Well, yeah, what I was speaking to in the beginning was that this particular process, I think, is flawed. I do. I think the original forum to listen to all, I think now there are 9 candidates, was supposed to be August 31st. And suddenly it changed to September 6th, which then only really gives a window of maybe 1 or 2 days before council gets a packet with the name of the candidate that Daniel Biss is recommending for them to consider, because they have to vote on September 12th, right? So they get, there's only a few days. It's not between the 6th and the 12th. It's really because the staff puts the packet together on Wednesday and Thursday. So if we're going to have input, and I believe we should be able to have some input, there needs to be a process for us to give him input. We may need to just write to him and do it, but we have to do it quickly. We have to do it Wednesday or Tuesday night, right? Otherwise, we don't have a voice in this. And maybe that's the point. Right?
Maybe that's the point. I don't know.
Maybe.
Everyone has to ask themselves that question. Is that the point? Yeah, I would think for this position, especially, you will want to hear definitely what the second ward thinks.
Right.
And doing a town hall with all of them and only giving them one question or maybe 2 in the short time frame that he does the forums. I don't know how you really come to an informed decision about 9, 11 individuals. And some of those individuals, like Anya, have great track records in this community, but some we don't have, there were some for 9th Ward, we didn't have a clue, like, who is that?
Right.
And I still didn't know who they were. I mean, I still don't really know who Juan Hedakais really is. I'm still waiting to hear his voice on the dais. But Anya, in seeing how the council is running, what will you do? What will you bring to answer to that transparency issue that the city seems to be having?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, my camera's having trouble, so I'm off camera. But at least I have audio. Yeah, I think transparency, as I mentioned earlier, I think transparency and inclusivity are core tenets of being able to build systemic racial equity and human rights inclusion. I would say that some of the lessons that we learned in District 65 about transparency and inclusivity are understanding that while it may take longer on the front end of work to include stakeholder voice and to release justification information and deliberate about that information in public and give folks the opportunity to get familiar with that data and work with it and ask questions, it saves time and energy on the back end if you do that on the front end. And I think that was a hard sell initially. Now it's considered a core tenet of work. If folks are planning a project in District 65, they build in time for stakeholder input and stakeholder data review. And that's just a given at this point. And it's with the understanding that on the back end, we have a better product and things move more quickly once we create something with everyone's input. And the example I'll give, I gave quite a bit when I was running in 2017, is that I think when stakeholders are not included in decision making, what happens is they are included once a decision has already been made. And that feels like a dishonest and undignified way of including folks. and it causes frustration and discord. And so what happens when stakeholders aren't included, it's similar to going to a group of people and saying, hey, we got you some pie, or we're going to get you some pie. What kind of pie do you like? And folks say, oh, you know what? I really love sweet potato pie. Oh, you know what? I love banana cream pie. And then we come back to them and we say, we have a blueberry pie and a pumpkin pie. Would you like it with whipped cream or no whipped cream? And folks are like, I love whipped cream, but I don't like none of them nasty pies. So I actually don't want any of it. And I'm upset because now I have my taste buds ready for some sweet potato pie and for some banana cream pie. And you came over here with these other dusty pies and are upset. But if you come to people before you make the blueberry pie and you don't tell people, oh, you get to choose your pie, but you instead you come to people and you say, hey, we would like to make some pie for you. These are the ingredients that we have. Can you help us determine what pie to make? That could take a long time. But once you make the pie, folks are going to be happy with the pie. No one's going to argue with you about the pie. Everyone's just going to eat it because they had input and they had buy-in and they understood what the outcome was likely going to be, and they have consented to it. And I think that everyone deserves the dignity of input and choice, and that transparency doesn't have to be a scary thing. It doesn't have to be a predictor of discord. Transparency can build community, it can build connection, and it can build a better product. And I would say probably one of my core philosophies speaks to that, which is if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I think that is the value of slowing things down and getting input, even though it may look messy on the front end. On the back end, you end up with a better product and you end up with happier stakeholders. And I would bring that perspective and that history and those ideas to the council and to City Hall to think about how we work together to build policy products that have more buy-in and more satisfaction through just sheer stakeholder input and slowing down.
Okay, thank you for that, Anya. Thank you. I think that breaks it down. I like the pie analogy. I like that. Yeah, if everybody's putting in the pot, someone's bringing the eggs, someone's bringing the vegetables, someone's bringing the broth, someone's bringing the flour, whatever it is, then everybody's going to be happy with that, right? Do I have that?
Yes,
Right?
And if folks understand, like, oh, I love banana cream pie, and you say the ingredients that we have are not the ingredients for banana cream pie, then that person might say, oh, well, you know what? My second favorite pie is coconut cream, and can we do that one? Because you got the cream, and I see you got that coconut over there, right? And then they're not upset at the end because they already consented to the fact that we had to make an adjustment because these are the ingredients and the tools and the talents that we had available. And so it's also about creating something together that allows everyone the dignity of consent and input.
Yes. I like that. Absolutely. We need to make a post of that on social media tomorrow. I think I'm going to take a clip of you just saying that. I love that thought. I think some of our council, they operate in that way. And then we have others that are like, no, you're going to eat this rhubarb pie and that's it. And that's what you're going to get, period. Okay, we have another, I think we're 8:19, we end at 8:30. So anyone with questions, get them ready because we'll be closing up soon. Arthur Ward.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry for being so late. I was at an NAASD committee meeting, which I had to be at. But now my understanding from the little bit of the conversation that I heard is that there's going to be a change at the top for the Reparations Commission in Evanston. Is that my understanding? Hello?
Robin Ruth Simmons is the chair. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, but there's supposed to be another person being put in or something like that.
Well, Alderman Braithwaite, Peter Braithwaite was the chair of
Right.
the Reparations Committee. So
Right.
he has stepped down. So they replaced Peter with Robin Ruth
Robin.
Simmons as the chairman.
Right.
But the person who is appointed second ward to replace Peter as the alderperson, they are automatically on to the Reparations Committee.
Oh, wow. And nobody had any input as far as like the citizens. Is that correct? Is that the complaint here or what?
Well, what we're discussing right now is the alderperson position.
Okay.
So we have Anya Tanyavutti here. She's a candidate. And
Okay.
so we wanted the residents to get to know her a little more. Those that don't know her, I mean, she's pretty well known, her leadership in Evanston. So if she is appointed, she would be on the committee, and we would hope to be chairman of the Reparations Committee.
Oh, that would be good.
Arthur,
Yes.
Arthur, could you
Yes.
tell our company a little bit about who you are?
Okay,
and,
well, thank you.
and why you're interested in Evanston.
Okay, well, actually, I am the vice president of the Freedmen Descendants of Chicago. Our primary focus is getting lineage-based reparations passed at the federal level. And we are actually opposed to local and state level efforts for reparations because in actuality, reparations is really a federal issue. But since these things have been established by certain organizations who want to actually derail reparations, we have to get involved in order to keep the whole thing from going off the rails. And lineage-based means that reparations at any level should only be for people that are descended from people that were enslaved only in the United States. There are certain aspects of the Evanston program which shoehorns in Caribbeans and Africans. That's totally inappropriate. It is a lineage-based thing, and the trajectory for reparations starts in slavery here. So that's primarily my interest. And actually, I was one of the first people. I wrote an article a few years ago, about the Evanston situation and the problems that it presents. And those problems have been spread across the country. And that's why in California, another organization that I'm affiliated with, the NAASD, had to get in front of it and establish a California Reparations Commission that is now lineage oriented. So that's who I am, and that's what I do.
Okay, thank you very much, Arthur. As far as I know, Robin Ruth Simmons is now the chairman of the Evanston Reparations Committee right now. I don't know what happens if, say, Anya is appointed. I don't know what happens after that. But as of right now, she is the chair. That's all I can tell you right now. But thank you so much for joining, and thank you for caring about what's going on in Evanston, because it does have an impact on the nation, actually.
Certainly does.
Yes, it does. And some would say it's not a good impact. Some would say.
Definitely not.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ward. Thank you. All right. Linda DeKel, any other questions before we close out?
I want to thank you, Malika, and also Anya for spending an hour and a half with us, because clearly from what I said before, I don't think that those of us in the second ward are going to have much of an opportunity to really deeply get to know these candidates. So what I'd like to encourage people to do who are on tonight, and to tell your friends and neighbors, especially if you're second ward, to contact Daniel and ask him 3 things. Ask him to release the names immediately of the 9 candidates that want to represent us, Second Ward. Ask him to create a forum for us to give him input quickly after he has the forum. And what's the third one? Mainly to do that, and to prioritize Second Ward voices, because I'm sure that he's hearing from 6th Ward, 7th Ward, Lakefront. He's hearing from those folks, but this person, whether it's Anya or someone else of those 9 people, are they going to represent us in the 2nd Ward? And it's a very different ward than the 1st Ward and the 6th Ward. So ask him those 3 things right now, because he's made this decision that this is how he's going forward. That's all.
I agree 100%, because this is what transparency is supposed to be about, right?
Right.
That is excellent. I agree 100%, because really it's about the 2nd Ward. It's about the 2nd Ward residents at the end of the day.
I have the names of the 9 candidates. Mayor Biss shared it with me today. Can I share that with you all?
Most definitely.
Okay. The 9 candidates that have applied for the alderperson position for the 2nd Ward are Keith Banks, Darlene Cannon, Matthew Faradi, Faradi, Trisha Gregory, Christian Harris.
Christy Harris.
He told me Christian, perhaps.
Hmm.
It was misspoken, or maybe it was Christine or Christina. But I heard Christian Harris. So
She
perhaps
calls
that's-
herself Chrissy.
Okay.
But that's Christine.
That's not how he pronounced the name. So I guess he used her government name. Blanca Lule, Mindy Scott, myself, Jesus Vega, and I believe that's all of the names in alphabetical order.
Okay.
I'm reading that those names have been published. That they're now published in the Evanston Now.
Okay. Yes, the city of Evanston loves Evanston Now.
I have one quick question, and maybe you folks can answer it very quickly. What is going to be the format of this forum with all the candidates? Are they going to be able to talk back and forth to each other, or is it just Biss asking them individual questions and they get to answer that one question? Okay, I see everybody nodding.
He's probably going to run it the way he ran the 9th Ward. And the 9th Ward forum, 2 questions were asked of each one. There was no discussion, no follow-up, just question, answer it, move to the next person, question, answered, move to the next one. So yeah, you don't get a chance to really know them. Like, I don't know half this list. Does anyone? Chrissy Harris, I know. Keith Banks, I know. Anya, I know. Darlene Cannon, I know. I don't know Blanca, Mindy, Jesus. I don't know. I don't know these people. I don't know. Linda?
No, I'm with you 100%.
DeKal, anyone? Yeah, and you're not going to get a chance to know them in the forum. You're not going to get a chance to really know them. Hopefully, there'll be some more town halls to get to know who these people are. But the fact that we don't know them, how active have they been in the community? What's their track record? We've never heard of them. So, but I want to think. Go ahead.
Ward and I have been here 42 years. We raised our kids here in the ward, and we've been in second ward that entire time. There are only 3 people on this list that I know that I've ever seen, maybe 4, but never seen them involved. I mean, we've been involved in second ward politics all those years. I don't know any of these people other than tonight I know Anya, and and there's 3 other people that I know. I'm not sure I've ever seen them even those people I don't think I've seen involved too much in ward politics. So it's a very interesting list. Yes.
That's scary.
Yeah. So the best to Anya.
I would just like to make a statement that I'm thankful to Anya for submitting for this position, because at least I know that she's qualified for the job and that she cares about the community. And that's important, even though I'm from a different ward, it's important to have somebody like that on the council, period. And I just wanted to say that, that's all.
Thank you for that, Ms. Joy. Thank you, thank you. Well, I want to thank everyone who joined us tonight and those who are watching out there on social media. Thank you for joining us. I hope you got to know Anya a little better. Many of us knew her already, so hopefully those of you who didn't know her, you got a much better understanding of who she is and her vision. And again, I'll say it again, her track record. The woman has a track record in this community, and it's a good one. Thank you for taking the time. I think a lot of our community just doesn't care anymore because of the lack of transparency. So they've just tuned out. They've just tuned out. So we hope to get them back, and we wish you the best. Anya, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your leadership. And whatever happens, thank you for all that you have contributed and poured into Evanston. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity to hear your thoughtful questions and participate in this conversation. And I am hopeful to continue engaging the Second Ward and to elevate Second Ward voices, and to turn what may feel like apathy now around into inspiration and engagement. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anya. And thank you, Dekel and Linda, for joining me tonight, and to everyone that's joined me tonight here on the Zoom and again out there on social media. And we will have a recording of this cleaned up, edited, so everyone can watch it and share. You cut up clips, send it out, and be sure contact Mayor Biss and let him know how you feel. Give your input. Okay, stay engaged, everyone. This is Malika, Evanston Live TV. Thank you for joining us.